Deltarune. We all know Deltarune. But what is Deltarune? No, seriously, what is it? The game? The prophecy? The word itself? Maybe it's all three? But the answer might be hiding in plain sight. Let's start with the title. In mathematics and physics, delta represents change, the difference between two states. These are the same symbols that appear on the Deltarune emblem itself. Runes are ancient inscriptions, or in witchcraft, magical symbols. What could these runes be? Maybe the legend itself. The title of the game literally means changing the ancient text, changing the prophecy. And it isn't a coincidence. In chapter 1, Rose calls the protagonist Delta Warriors, warriors of change. This is proof that Rose wanted to change the prophecy. So, is that it? Okay, now seriously, what does this mean? Changing the prophecy. What will it help us do? Listen, we all knew it was going back to him. It always goes back to him. For real this time. When Deltarune was first published, an entity, presumably Gaster, took over Doppyvox's account and said, I look forward to creating a new future with you. Now, reveal yourself, Deltarune. When this first happened, we all assumed it meant something related to Undertale. But looking back at it, a new future? Well, wouldn't the new future be in Deltarune? Wouldn't that mean Gaster wants to help us change the prophecy? But how would you even do that? If you wanted to fully change the prophecy, you need someone who would want to follow it. Someone chaotic enough to break it entirely. Someone who could shatter fate itself. Where would you find... Oh, right. So, let's talk about the start of the game. When we first ended the program, a voice asked us if we were connected. This is clearly the same voice from the Gaster tweets. Science also talks about a connection. It guides us through creating a vessel, our own character, our own chance to be the hero. And then, another voice interrupts. It forces us into gears. No vessel, no choice, just a cage. From here, we can do much to change the prophecy. We have limited freedom. And worse, Chris is clearly working with someone, tonight, to want the prophecy fulfilled. So, are we doomed? Are we stuck following the prophecy to its tragic end? Maybe it will be, if we didn't have the dragon by our side. The Shatterer of Prophecies. Susie. She is interesting, isn't she? A girl who completely changed from the first chapter, from being an antagonist to the real heart of Deltarune. Since she appeared, things have been getting better. She gives hope to others, and she does want to change the prophecy. She's even doing it on a small scale. What do I mean? Well, in the prophecy, Rose always wears his cloak, but Susie told him to remove it. In the other Dark Wars, every representation of him has his hat on, also removed by Susie. It's almost like he was never supposed to remove them, but thanks to Susie, he did, and is now forming a natural identity, no longer just a third hero. I do wonder how she's changing the prophecy. She shouldn't be able to. Maybe she's able to, because she isn't a hero. Now, I know that this isn't an original talk, but I truly believe Susie isn't the second hero. From a writing standpoint, having Susie say she's happy, that she's important, to be a part of something, that she's a hero, is a giant Jacob's gun. It's almost too obvious. But is there actual proof? Yes, Gerson. In his battle, Gerson talks about a story inspired by the prophecy, Lord of the Hammer. It isn't exactly the same, but it has parallels. When describing Chapter 1, he says, Chapter 1, the March of the Dark King. The heroes defeat the king and stop the dragon. But there's no dragon in the first chapter. King is the final boss, so is the dragon. Later, Susie asks Gerson what character from Dragon Blazer, a video game adaptation of his story, she is. He answers, You're the dragon. And Gerson clearly knows what this means. He also says, The words on the wall call you a hero, whatever you end up being. I'm sure it'd be tremendous. The prophecy calls her a hero, but Gerson, the author who wrote the story the prophecy inspired, says she's the dragon. He knows something we don't. Thanks to Chapter 4, now we have a much clearer picture of the full prophecy. Here are the most important lines. The first hero, the cage, with human souls and parts. The second hero, the girl, with top cross on her heart. The third hero, the prince, alone in the deepest dark. And the last was the girl, at last was the girl. Love finds its way to the girl. Notice something strange? There are two mentions of the girl. The second hero is a girl with hope on her heart, but then, at last was the girl, appears separately. The image of the last girl has the weird Gaster symbol on it, a symbol unique to Susie. And the imagery associated with the girl shows a figure of the last word. That doesn't sound like Susie. Susie uses an axe. She refuses to use words. But we do know of a girl who can use words. And I'm not talking about now. December holiday. Think about it. This is always referred to as the girl, the lost girl, a messy unfocused girl. And what does the prophecy say? Love finds its way to the girl. Finds is the key word, because as you should know, the track associated with Des is finder. Find. And what else do we know about Des? She was clearly a kind of rebel, judging by the stuff in her room and what Noel tells us, even a bit violent. Violent? Like LOV? Level of violence? Now, I said Des uses words. That only works if Des is connected to the night, because the night feels as word that sometimes shifts to a bat. But here's the thing. I'm not going to pretend they have the evidence for Death Night ready to present. The theory has its problems. The biggest one, the news text seems to show Death trapped somewhere, confused, slowly realizing no one can hear her. How could she be opening fountains if she's stuck in a dark place, losing track of time? Some people get around this by saying the night isn't really literally death. It's an amalgam of her gone, her besonnaire, something made from her memory, her pain, her absence. The real death is still missing. The night is what left. Other points to smaller details. The night's her sound effect was slowed down resembles Noel's voice pitched down. The Black Knife theme contains fragment of the Lost Girl motif. But I'll be honest, this part of the theory is something I can never finish with this little information I have. If you want to know what I think, this is partially the night, probably her soul stole by a darkener. She sees the dark because she's part of the night, but not fully. It could even be that unused isn't death, but instead the vessel, since it got discarded and is now unused. What matters for this theory is simple. Death was the intended second year. The prophecy says the girl will find love. This love could be a V from Undertale, level of violence. Death had a bat. Death was rebellious, maybe violent, and now she's gone. Whether she became the knight or something else entirely, that's a question for another day. For now, all we need to know is the girl the prophecy was written for isn't here anymore, and someone else took her place. The bagger door has these strange symbols on it. 3 symbols, 3 heroes. A pine tree, someone connected to the old days, death, the true second hero. A police badge, the first hero, someone connected to the police. Chris Fitz, the father was the chief after all. The Deltarune, someone connected to the prophecy itself, Rousey. The door is telling us who the heroes were supposed to be, but one of them is missing, and the bunker knows why. Listen to the music outside the door. It's Gaster's theme, slowed down, waiting. Inside the bunker, years ago, something happened to Chris, Asriel, Des, and Noel. Something traumatic. Des had the access code, and now she's gone. The news text, likely Des, describe where she is now. Pitch black darkness, no concept of time, an occasional scratching noise, a watchful presence. She's trapped, somewhere dark, where something is watching. Now remember the chapter 4 prophecy. Tales see the tail of hell they crawl. A pointed tail, a cat tail. Image friend, the smiling entity in the bunker, is named in the files. But in chapter 3, the chapter Chris meet the thunder, it's just right, without a name. Almost like it only has a name when the night is involved. The character in the church talks about children following a pointed tail, following it into the darkness, into the bunker. Image friend is connected to Gaster. Gaster is connected to the number 6, the number of the beast, the tail of hell. So here's the question. Did Gaster lure Death into that bunker? Did he use her? Discard her? the Vortex experiment. He wants to change the prophecy. He wants a new future. He brought us here to help. But Gaster has always been willing to sacrifice. He fell into his own creation, chasing curiosity. He drove Phantom insane just for contacting him. He's not evil, he's worse. He's a scientist who will break anything, anyone, to get results. That is why he allows the weird war to happen, to get results, break the prophecy. So here's what I believe. The prophecy was written from Chris, Des, and Rousey. Des was the girl, the second year, who will find love through violence. But Des disappeared into that banger, following the pointed tail. Chris Sotes knows what happens, and is now scared of the banger. Since they saw this, they know how to access it. When Des disappeared, the prophecy adapted. It grabbed the next available girl, Susie, and shoved her into their role. That's why the prophecy goes as a hero. But it's wrong. It's trying to correct itself. Susie isn't the hero, she's the dragon. Gerson knew this. That's why he smiled and said, whatever you end up being, I'm sure it'll be tremendous. He knows the prophecy is broken, and he knows Susie's the key to breaking it further. But what about Gaster? Gaster wanted a new future. He reached out to us through the tweets. He guided us through a vessel creation. He wanted us to have a choice, something this world doesn't allow. But something interrupted him. Another voice forced us into Chris, forced us to follow the script. Why? Because if we had a vessel, if we had true freedom, we may actually save the world. And he doesn't want that. Gaster will help us change the prophecy. He'll let us save the world. And he'll do whatever it takes.